All right, guys, so today we're going to take a look at one of my favorite coaches in the country, Coach Andy Kotelnicki, who is just hired as the offensive coordinator at Kansas. Previously at Whitewater and Buffalo, I've seen Coach Kotelnicki's clinics a few different times, particularly the ones that are focused on game planning, and I think he does a really good job being able to break down how he has game planned throughout his experience as an offensive coordinator. I think this is one area that as coaches we struggle with a little bit because there isn't some type of rule book and we don't usually have a concrete method of how we put game plans together. So in this one we're going to take a look at his philosophy, and I think it really helps create a framework, and hopefully you guys can take a couple of things and use in your own program. Let's hop into it. All right, so the first aspect that Coach Kotelnicki really looks at heavily is going to be situational football. And I think it's one of those commonplace terms that's used a lot in football right now, but I think it's something that's not overly quantifiable, and not a whole lot of people really know how to necessarily apply it rather than just kind of sitting there and talking about it. This is one of the big things that I think he goes through, and a lot of that comes down to practice preparation and how you're able to break down the given situations that you're going to encounter on a Friday and simulate that as best as possible during a practice. He talks about really training guys to understand down and distances and situations, whether it's a red zone or goal line type situation or a 2-minute and 4-minute or a backed up, really emphasizing and putting those situations into your team practice so that way you have an idea of what you're going to be able to run on 3rd and 10. And that way the quarterback doesn't go out there and when it is 3rd down and 10, he sits there and runs for a 2-yard gain when maybe you really need to get that first down and get 10 yards and have an opportunity to do so. So I think if you have chains and the ability to have guys to be able to do that, I think that type of stuff is really important, but really setting the precedent of during this session, we're going to focus on the plays that are going to fit into the category of, the low red zone, and then focus on teaching the kids those plays, because I think the best thing you can do for your players is when they know that it's 3rd down and 10, they know the 3 plays that you've practiced in that situation over the course of a week. I think the biggest way that Coach Kotelnicki is able to put together a lot of these types of things is he breaks down situations and helps you to be able to understand how much time you should be practicing each specific situation given your own team. So a lot of that is going to be delegated on looking at your pass numbers and being able to see how many times am I in 1st down and 10, how many times am I in 3rd down and 12. Once you're able to figure out that type of data, you're able to reverse engineer that back from game day into practice, which I think is one of the biggest themes that you'll see throughout his clinic, is he really focuses on taking practice seriously. And I think a lot of us, we really try to do that to the best degree, but I think the biggest area that coaches can really improve on is going to be time management, and he does a great job of being able to explain how can we do this in a quantifiable way that's going to really allow us to succeed and build off of ourselves to make sure that we're in the best situation for our players. So I'm going to throw up basically a breakdown because I watched this clinic for the first time like a year ago. I'm going to take this breakdown and kind of show you guys how I was able to break down our offense. And then we were able to sit here and see how many calls we should have for each specific situation, which is going to help us be able to put together each of our offensive periods. So I'm going to throw these numbers up on the screen for you and just kind of talk you through it a little bit. So number 1, obviously you want to take your base number of total plays that you're going to have, and now we're going to be able to split that up into sections to be able to understand where our practice time should be allocated for. So for us, we average 60 offensive plays per game. 25 of those-ish was 1st down and 10. And then you can see the breakdown as it goes from 2nd into 3rd down, 4th down, goal line, and red zone. So I think this hopefully does a really good job of helping you to be able to evaluate, hey, how am I doing practice-wise? And is what I'm practicing actually making its way into the game? And is am I able to find that correct ratio and put myself together so that way I'm putting effort on things that actually matter when it comes down to Friday night? I think if you're able to sit there and put these numbers together and understand where a lot of these components come from, and anybody can do this with your previous season, this will give you a really good idea of being able to sit there and say, hey, are we getting the most out of practice as we possibly can? And are we practicing the situations that we find ourselves in throughout a game on a Friday night? So the second big thing that I got out of his talk is being able to take practice planning more seriously. Now, this is something that I'm really passionate about because I think throughout the different schools that I've been at, I've gotten to see how this can really make or break the difference between having a successful team and being able to build it over week by week. I think if you're able to sit there and create situations that hold you accountable for time management, I think that really helps you be able to stay on course. Now, I understand that a lot of that type of stuff comes down to practice plans and scripts and a lot of these templates and, technology pieces that I think sometimes coaches have a really hard time being able to create. That's one of the biggest reasons why on this channel, I want to be able to take those pieces and put them into a Google Drive for you guys, absolutely free for you to be able to use. I have created quite a few things over my time, but if I'm able to share that with somebody else and hopefully it allows them to get the most out of their players, I'm going to feel better about myself because ultimately the players are the ones that are able to win. I'm lucky enough to be decently tech savvy, so I can put some of this type of stuff together, and I'm more than willing to share it with you guys. Alright guys, so I am going to give a quick plug. If you haven't watched episode 11 of the Coaches Collective podcast, it's definitely something you need to be able to check out. And a lot of the areas that Dan and Chris and Derek talk about in that segment are a big reason why I want to be able to give away as much like templates and content as stuff as possible. I'll put the link in the description down below. Again, I don't have any affiliation with the podcast. I just think it's something that's super valuable that everybody can take something away from. I think the other piece that he was super passionate about throughout this presentation is how important he believes it is to prepare for practice and meetings the day before. So he never has any of the guys leave the building without planning and having those scripts and having those practice plans completed for the next day, because he doesn't want to be scrambling around on a Wednesday because he doesn't have the Wednesday script and the Wednesday schedule finished. So he always talks about how important it is to have that type of stuff done on the previous day, so that way you can come in that morning and know exactly where everything is at. You don't have to mess around with figuring out the logistical stuff. I think the next big thing that I really got out of his presentation is how he focuses on planning around yourself more than around your component. And I myself am completely guilty of this as well. We sit there, we start watching a new opponent, and we get excited because, we want to see what we can do against this formation, that formation. And sometimes I think we need to take a step back and we need to look at ourselves and figure out what we do well. So in my eyes, the biggest things that I'm going to look at over the previous game are, number one, what were our explosive plays? Okay, what were we able to gain 12 or more yards on? Those should be the core things that we look at and make sure that we identify, hey, was this kind of a gimmicky situation, or is this to the core of what we do? Because I think that's really important in being able to see, hey, where are we going and where are we able to have success week to week? Conversely, I think the next piece is going to be, what did we not do so well? So the biggest things I would look at in terms of that are going to be, number one, negative plays. So did we have some plays that were just blown up because we either weren't strong enough at the point of attack, or we dropped a pass or something like that? Where were we negative? What are our most negative plays? And I think sometimes that's a better indicator on whether we're able to be successful on a play. The next thing I think would be penalties. So where were we penalized the most? Did we have consistent issues with that? And third is going to be turnovers, because I think sometimes turnovers, can be caused by just not being very good. But sometimes I think it's just whether it's a bad decision or, you're running down the sideline and exposing the ball or something like that. So sometimes I don't think turnovers have necessarily that big an impact on what we actually did well or not well. I think it's more about whether we got negative plays or what are we consistently getting beat at. That's going to kind of tell us, hey, this is either something that we need to improve on drastically, or depending on where you're at in the season, you just might have to cut your losses and say, this is just something we're not going to do because we're just not that effective at it. And that's totally okay. The next area that I think he really takes a major approach at looking at is going to be quantifying and evaluating the practice time that you have. So looking at how many team reps are you going to have per week? How many are you going to have per day? And then where are those team reps being allocated? He looks at team reps in terms of just being your full-on team period. He doesn't take inside run or any type of 7-on-7 skelly into preparation. He uses those as being to prepare for the live team reps. But anytime you have reps during team, how are those being allocated and used throughout the week, and does that translate to the time that you're being able to put in on game day? Again, I think this is a really good presentation because it shows kind of how you reverse engineer the situations and plays on game day and work that back into your practice to make sure that you're getting the most out of your kids. He finishes up the presentation by walking you through his day and week in the life of what they do at Buffalo. So how they segment their practices and plan and prepare for those practices Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and walks you through how to be able to kind of put that plan into action. I think this is a really important step, and it's another reason why I would definitely check out the full video down below. All right, so looking at this clinic presentation in totality, I think it's a really, really important and great clinic for somebody to look at if they're a first-time coordinator or head coach, or they just want to be able to understand and have a good framework of how to be able to structure and build a practice plan and translate that into a game. I think there's a lot of simple steps here that are quantifiable and make a lot of sense. It's not a ton of coach speak, and there's a lot of direct application that everybody can utilize within their program. Now, unfortunately, and this is the part where we're going to lose a lot of coaches, it doesn't have a lot of scheme talk and things like that, which I'm totally okay with. I don't necessarily need to look at a lot of scheme stuff. I can go and use other resources for that. This one really just focuses on the method of how they are able to create a game plan and go through the beginning, the middle, and the end and put everything together into a game-like form. Now, I get practice planning is not the coolest thing to be able to talk about. Time management and utilizing technology, it's not the sexiest stuff. But if you've stuck around this far, go to the Google Drive link in the description below, and I'm going to give you my copy of the practice script that we use on a regular basis. I'll put a picture of it right here just to kind of show you guys. But again, this is an Excel spreadsheet, and hopefully this can make it a little bit easier on you guys as you prepare your weekly schedule. So let me know what you thought of this clinic type session where I sit here and go through some of these clinics. There's quite a bit of stuff out there right now, and I'd really like to be able to sit there and take some things and synthesize them down, as well as give my own reaction about what I kind of think about some of the material. I do have a Steve Sarkisian, Ryan Day, and Lincoln Riley on my list to be able to complete. If you have some other ideas, drop a comment below. I'd really appreciate it. And always, something.